Good afternoon and welcome to the Above Ground Leadership Podcast, episode 7. This will be a part 2 episode. We'll continue on with the Colin Powell Leadership Primer. Welcome Terrence. Terrence back. He just right off vacation. Welcome Terrence. Welcome back, man.
Thanks for having me, Ray. Appreciate it.
Hey, man, we're going to get right into it. But hey, if this is your first time to the channel, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any content. Go on and like the videos. If you missed the first episode of part 1, go back and see that one. You got lessons 1 through 6, right? And today we'll be knocking out part 2. So we're gonna get right to it. So if you miss anything, I will say this: Colin Powell to me was one of my mentors who I never met. Right? He's one of those key figures in my life that helped me develop as a leader. Right? When I looked at him, I saw a man with integrity, a leader that really took care of his people. And that's something that I kind of molded and built my leadership style behind. And I had some success in my military career and my coaching career and my life after the military using that approach. So what we're doing, we're just going through our lessons. Like I say, we already went 1 through 6. We'll start with 7. I'll read it and we'll discuss it. Keep looking below the surface's appearance. Don't shrink from doing so just because you might not like what you find. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's a slogan for complacent, the arrogant, or the scared. It's an excuse for inaction, a call to non-arms. It's a mindset that assumes or hopes that today's realities will continue tomorrow in a tidy, linear, predictable fashion. That's pure fantasy. In this sort of culture, you won't find people who proactively take steps to solve problems as they emerge. Here's a little tip: don't invest in these companies. So this here is a really good lesson based solely on, I always felt when I got somewhere new in the military, you always went to a new job and you do what they call a right seat ride, and you right seat ride with the person you're replacing or the person you're replacing for a couple of weeks, and then they take off and you keep moving, right? But during that time, I turn over rocks. I want to look under everything, right? Because I really believe in not just doing it because that's the way it's done or that's the way it's been done, right? As I said in the last episode, I asked myself this one question: are we elite at it? Are we the best at it? Are we optimal? If we're not optimal, elite, or the best, we probably need to keep digging and trying and tweaking. And sometimes, you'll dig and you'll tweak, you'll look, and it's not a better way, right? Mm-hmm. But as a leader, you have to make that concerted effort to really turn those rocks over, look under every system, look at every process, and really seeking you make your team better. Because as that last step said, as the last part said, if you're not doing it, your team's not doing it, right? If you're not doing it, your team's not doing it. What you think about that, Terrence?
Well, so I think when we're looking below surface, it says, don't shrink from doing so just because you might not like what you find. And that sounds like fear to me. Where on the other side, I think a lot of times we don't do things because of what could go wrong. Mm-hmm. Not realizing if we were to turn those stones over, try different tactics, we might find a better way.
Right.
I think a lot of people, it goes back to what we were saying last episode, like a leader doesn't have anybody to look towards. Sometimes we're out there by ourselves. So you got to be fine with saying, I might turn this stone over, it might not go well, or I might strike gold. So you gotta be cool with taking that risk. You gotta believe in yourself, and it's like a trust in yourself. Like even if I mess up, it's not a loss, it's a lesson. So that's how I feel about that.
No doubt, and that's a really good point, man. Because that's where you learn, right? In your digging, and so that's a really good point, because in your digging, right, and you're looking for rocks, and you're investing. Researching every process, right?
Right.
You're learning the system. So a lot of times, as a new leader, I will go to a new section or go somewhere, or as a coach, go to a new staff, and ask those questions. Why don't we do this? Right? Why won't we do this? Because look, good leaders, they want that feedback. They really want that feedback, because at the end of the day, that's how they're going to get better. Right? So you can't be afraid of it. As you say, you can't fear that. And because when you do fear that, right, you'll hurt your team. All right, you'll hurt your team. Lesson 8. Organizations does not really accomplish anything. Plans don't accomplish anything either. Theories of management don't much matter. Endeavors succeed or fail because of the people involved. Only by attracting the best people you accomplish great deeds. In a brain-based economy, your best assets are people. We've heard this expression so often that it's become trite. But how many leaders really walk the talk with this stuff? Too often, people are assumed to be empty chess pieces to be moved around by grand visors, which may explain why so many top managers immerse their calendar time with deal making, restructuring, and the latest management fad. How many immerse themselves in the goal of creating an environment where the best, the brightest, and the most creative are attracted, retained, and most importantly, unleashed? Now, bottom line with this, when I read this, the bottom line with this one, it's all about your people. And from an athletic standpoint, you've heard, it's not about the X's and O's, it's about the Jimmys and the Joes, right? You can, at the end of the day, I know we didn't have a conversation talking about, I think we was talking about, I forget what series we was talking about. And I remember saying, at the end of the day, the best player is going to win.
Yeah.
Right. At the end of the day, and when it comes down, you got to have a guy who can just go get a bucket. Right. But from a team standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, you got to take care of your people. You got to take care of your people. You got to develop them. You got to make sure what you're building is about them. Right.
Right.
Right. Because your team, your church, right, your system, it doesn't work without the people involved. The people involved are your most important resource. Like, no question, without a doubt, your people are your most important resource. And as soon as leaders find that out and they develop them and they pour into their people, they like those rewards. All right. What you think?
Well, I think people miss that, developing people, is because it's like the example says, theories of management, organization, endeavor, succeed or fail, because the people involved. I think we like to dress things up real nice. Right. If I have a brand new idea and I write it on the board and I make a pamphlet and I hand it out to everybody and it makes me look good, that makes me look smart. But that's not what gets things done in any business. I feel like, you can have a great business model, but if you're not taking care of your people, ultimately the business is going to crumble. And that's what I feel like happens in businesses that we see a lot of turnover in. Right. They get you hype on an idea, they get you hype on the image of what it could be, but they're not really in it for you. They're in it for, making the business look good.
Right.
The businesses where you have people who are tenured and who are involved and, really know what's going on and people are really getting taken care of. It's not because they make it look good. It's because the people actually are good. The people are built up, and that's from good leadership. So
no doubt.
And I've been a part of companies where you could tell like they're not here for me. They're here just to make the company look good.
No doubt.
And those are the jobs where you'll be going in 6 months and have a whole new crew in another 6 months. Mm-hmm. So for me, the best jobs are where the people are getting taken care of.
No doubt. And show you how this thing ties in. So in lesson 7, right, it was talking about looking under rocks when you get there. So you're a new leader, right? And you get to you get to a new church and they got all the fancy the fancy programs and everything for you. So on the surface, everything looks good. Like everything is so as a leader, as a unseasoned leader or a leader who's afraid to find out the truth, you don't even look because everything on the surface is good.
Right.
But as soon as you start looking under the surface, you start finding out the people not treated well. Right.
Yeah. I heard TD Jake said, like, when he goes into new business deals with somebody, he doesn't pay attention to how they treat him. He says, how'd you treat the guy that parked the car? How'd you treat the waiter? You know what I'm saying? Because when it hits the fan, you're gonna treat me just like that. You know, you can only, he said it best, you can try to hide, but that's just the top layer. You was who you was before you got here. You know, ultimately, what you really are is gonna come out. So you can dress it up all you want, but eventually it's gonna crumble. So it's better to be genuine with it.
Right, because when you heat it up, the truth come out. Right, just like
for sure.
When you heat it up, when you apply pressure, your true character will be revealed. Like your true character will be revealed. Who you really are will be revealed. Yep, that's a great job. All right, 9. All right, 9. Lesson 9. Organization charts and fancy titles count for next to nothing. Organization charts are frozen, anachronistic photos in a workplace that ought to be dynamic as the external environment around you. If people really follow organization charts, companies would collapse. In a well-run organization, titles are also meaningless. At best, they advertise some authority and official status, conferring to the ability to give orders and induce obedience. But titles mean little in terms of real power, which is the capacity to influence and inspire. I'm gonna stop there. We may come back to there because I am a firm believer of this. And I think I said this in a previous podcast. Leadership has zero to do with your title. Like you can be the junior member on the team, on the staff, in the congregation. Leadership is about influence.
Right.
Whoever has the influence, that's who's leading. That's who's leading your team.
Right.
You can preach, and you can talk, and you can lead, you can try to lead, but if you don't have the influence of your people, they're not following. They're gonna always look at the person that they're following and say, "Man, are you doing this too?" Right? Because if you ain't doing it, I ain't doing it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so you have to really find the way to have that influence. And I mentioned this like with your children and because especially with the social media influence and as parents, we really have to make sure we reach our kids.
Right.
Because they're very influential, right? And I want to make sure that, using Teray for an example, that Miko and I have an influence on her. So our words are not meaningless, right? Because when you don't have that influence and it's somebody else in their lives that has an influence, you can talk from the top of your lungs and you can use discipline all you want. At the end of the day, when you want them to lead, you want them to follow, you have to have that influence. All right. I'll let you go and then I'm gonna come back and finish reading that. Go ahead. What you got?
Well, you had said one time, I remember during COVID, I was talking to you and you were telling people in the gym to go put that mask on. And it was a dude with a higher rank than you, I think you had said, and you told him to put his mask on. And he was like, gave you some back talk. And you said, well, I'm gonna cut the lights off then until you put your mask on. And I remember you told me that. And I said, well, I asked you, I was like, is that like somebody that's below you in rank? He said, no, he's above me. But if it came down to it, I'd be above him. Like people would listen to me over him. And I remember when you said that, I was like, well, how does that work? Because I thought in the Army it was about rank and title. But it's like, no, like you're a leader. And that's the thing. Like, I feel like anybody who works in the workforce can relate to it. You have managers who are above you in title, but they're not more influential than you. You know, like people aren't really listening to what they say. Like we work under you, but we don't really. So when I think about that, it's more so like, I think it's like you said, we have to have an influence. And in order to have influence to people like your daughter, she has to know you care about her, right?
No doubt.
That's where it starts. You got to know like that this person cares about me. And also I feel like that care comes to the people we're influencing. Like we kind of see ourselves in them, right?
Right.
So they're naturally attracted to us.
No doubt.
So I feel like you can't be a leader. I feel like we covered that in the last episode. You can't be a leader. Like nobody's gonna follow you if you don't care about them. Because most of the time people can tell if you care about them or not. Like it's obvious to them. And so they're already tuning you out. But the person who cares about them, that's the one who they'll follow. So
and they know when it's right. They know when it's
I'm not sure if I answered that, but yeah,
you did. But because at the end of the day, I mean it's at the bottom line to this lesson is talking about influence, right? And that's kind of why I stopped, because he mentioned it, influence and inspire, because you have to. And here's another thing: as a junior leader, right, on a team, a staff, or in an organization, your leader will follow, and not have an issue with it. I mean, good leaders follow, right? If you have, if they say, okay, Terrence has this, he has their ear. So instead of, if let's, and I'll just use us for example, we're on the team, and you're a junior leader on my team, and I notice that you have the influence. The only person I need to, I'm not trying to influence the team anymore. I'm trying to influence you.
But let me say this. A lot of people don't do that. It becomes a battle, right?
Right.
Like you have their ear, so now I'm mad at you because I want their ear, but you got it. So now I'm gonna try to get into a back and forth with you, where like you said, a real leader says, okay, so that's the one they look to. So I don't gotta worry about all them. All I gotta do is make sure that he's leading the right way, and that's it. And I feel like bad leadership is when you let it become like an ego thing.
No question.
And it's like now, yeah. So
at that point, I bring Terrence to the office. I sit him down, and say, hey, look, man, at the end of the day, like, I don't know if you notice or not, you're a leader. Like you influence the team. So I need you to do the right thing. I need you to do the right thing. And at that point, we have a conversation on the expectation of you.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's the point of where I need to know if I got to keep you or let you go.
Yeah.
Because you can't have somebody, and that's one of those tough decisions of leadership, right? Because now, if you're doing what you're supposed to, not perfect, but if you're doing what you're supposed to do, that conversation, quick conversation. But just let's say that influencing is not really copacetic.
Right.
Let's say that influence is really kind of going this way. We gotta have a real conversation, right? And we gotta sit down and say, okay, look, you have the ear, but we have to do things this way, right? This is the way we do things. Now, I would take any input, right? But at the end of the day, it's a way that we're going to do things, and that's kind of how you'll get to that. All right. So I'm gonna finish reading that. Have you ever noticed that people will personally commit to certain individuals who on paper possess little authority, but instead possess pizzazz, drive, expertise, and genuine caring for their teammates and products? On the flip side, non-leaders in management may be formally anointed with all the perks and frills associated with high positions, but they have little influence on others, apart from their ability to extract minimum compliance into minimal standards. Now, and we really covered all that, but speaking on the part where he says the non-leaders, and I know I've worked with leaders that way. And one of the things that they would ask, Chief, so how you get them to do this? I just care. Like you, and you can't care one day, right? You can't care this day and then not care the next week. You have to be genuine. You have to be your genuine self, and your team will follow. Your team will recognize that. They'll latch on and they'll follow, or they'll unlatch and let you go about your way and find somebody else to latch on. They will latch on to somebody on the team. All right. They will latch on to somebody on the team. All right. Lesson 10. All right. I think we're going to move. Let's do that. There we go. Never let your ego get so close to your position that when your position goes, your ego goes with it, right? You just mentioned ego, man. That ego will bring it down fast, all right? Yeah. Too often, the change is stifled by people who cling to familiar turfs and job description. One reason that even large organizations wither is that managers won't challenge old, comfortable ways of doing things. But real leaders understand that nowadays, every one of our jobs is becoming obsolete. The proper response is to obsolete our activities before someone else does. Effective leaders create a climate where people People's worth is determined by their willingness to learn new skills and grab new responsibilities, thus perpetually reinventing their jobs. The most important question in performance evaluation becomes not how well did you do your job since the last time we met, but how much did you change it? So I'll say this. I can't remember the person, but when I first became a warrant officer, I had a leader tell me, Chief, don't make this your baby. Don't make that project your baby and feel you got to protect it. Do your best on it. Do your job. But at the end of the day, it's not your decision. That ain't our job, you know, as a technician. Our job really wasn't a decision maker. Your job is to provide the best guidance and advice to the boss as possible. And he or she makes the decision, right? But see, what happens is people let their ego get wrapped up into the job, right? So you come to me and say, hey, Chief, I need this product to you. Boom. I done put months into this product, right? And I bring it to you and you research it, boom, and you make a decision that doesn't really promote my work.
Yeah.
Right? My ego, that I did my job. I gave you a good product. I poured a lot of work into it. And if you made a decision after you went through it and say, hey, this is, you know, that ain't really the way I want to go, I got to live with that. A lot of people struggle with that. A lot of people struggle with that because they take it personal. They take it like it affects their ego and they can't live with that. Why you ain't pick my stuff? Why didn't you use my advice? Right. And that's one of those things that as leaders, we just have to grow on. What you got? Lesson 10.
Man, that's something as a young leader, I'm in, like, I feel like I'm learning that right now because, you know, I'm in church a lot. I see people dealing with their problems. I give advice, right? And you talk to them a couple months later and they did the complete opposite of what you said. So like you said, that hurts your ego a little bit. But like also you said, like the person told you that's not your job. Right. So ultimately, it's not my job that people make the right decision either. I just give them, like you said, my analysis, my advice, my guidance. But if they choose to do what they want to do, the blood's not on my hands no more. Like, it's not my fault. Right. And I feel like I had to learn that. Because you're like you said, your position will go with it. Like my position of somebody that cares about you, I go with you when you make a bad decision.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like I'm there with you. I feel like you I don't know. It hurts. It hurts us leaders.
Oh, no, but it's something that it's natural to hurt. It's natural to hurt. And I think it's one of those, it's one of those winning, learning type of deals.
Right.
Every experience is a valuable lesson in every experience. You know, right. Every experience is a valuable lesson. So you'll go out and you'll work on a project, or you'll be working in a position, right? Mm-hmm. And the position is furloughed, or the position is excess, and they're getting rid of it, right? Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, you got to realize whoever is making that decision at higher headquarters or wherever, they ain't looking at Terrence Williams saying we getting rid of his job,
right?
Right? They're getting rid of a job, right? So you, as a leader, you got to now grow. You got to develop. You got to show your worth. You got to get out and say, okay, they getting rid of this. But a key point into this lesson here that Colin Powell said was, great leaders see that coming.
Yeah.
We can see, okay, just using the budget. Last year, the budget we were getting 20,000. We got 7,500 this year.
Right.
Let me start flipping these rocks over, because something is going on. Change is on the way.
And that's like, you gotta look at the position. It's kind of like a playground, like a gym, you know?
Right.
Like, this ain't home. This ain't where I'm gonna get comfortable at. I'm gonna just work out until I gotta move on. You know, I'm gonna sharpen my skills. Like you said, right. Flip some rocks. So you can't, like you said, you can't take it personal. You just gotta see every situation. It's just like, this ain't my end game. You know, this is where I'm at right now. But as a leader, as a person I am, you know, I'll be in a better place than this eventually. So it's just looking at it like that, I guess.
No doubt. Good point. Number 11, lesson 11. Hit no stereotypes. Don't chase the latest management fads. The situation dictates which approach best accomplishes the team's mission. Fitting from fad to fad creates team confusion, reduces leaders' credibility, and drains organizational coffers. Blindly following a particular fad generates rigidity in thought and action. Sometimes speed to market is more important than total quality. I'm gonna stop there on that, and I'm gonna finish, but I'm gonna come back to that point. Sometimes an unapologetic directive is more appropriate than the particular discussion. Some situations require the leader to hover closely, others require long, loose leashes. Leaders honor the core values, but they are flexible in how they execute them. They understand that the management techniques are not magic mantras, but simply tools to be reached for at the right time. So I'm a firm believer in and this similar to lesson 7, I don't do things just because you do them.
Right.
I'm a firm believer in what works for me won't necessarily work for you. Right? Now, I may try it and say, so if I'm teaching, let's say, as a barber, I'm teaching somebody how to cut hair, and I say, well, this is how I do it. You learn how I do it, and then you got to put your own twist into it. You got to make it yours, right? If I shoot one way, I shoot like this. I use this footwork, right? You can't get away from the core details of the footwork, but you may get to that point, right, a different way, right? So leaders who really are afraid or stiff in their approach, right? That's what I want to say. Leaders who are stiff in their approach struggle, right? It's like you can't lead every player the same way. You can't lead your kids the same way. You have to have, that balance to be able to change. But I wanted to come back to this point where I said sometimes speed to the market is more important than total quality. You know who mastered this? Apple mastered this. Apple mastered this. What iPhone we on now? 12? Right?
Yeah, 12 is the latest one. Yeah.
If Apple wanted to put out a perfect phone, they could put out a perfect phone.
Oh, for sure.
Right? But why put out a perfect phone? Nobody won't buy the next one the next year.
Right?
So they put out a phone at 60, 70% and update it throughout the years. 2 years later, they make it 72% because they don't make it 80%, right? Because that's how we're on 12, right? And they keep dropping this and people just keep going out because, again, speed to the market. Get it out, right? And we're going to cover this later in part 3 and one of the lessons talk about the 30-70 rule, right? And leaders struggle who try to get all the information. Right. And 30% of the information to 70% of the information is enough to make a decision, right? Anything before 30, you're being reckless, right? You don't know enough, right? Anything after 70, you're wasting time. You procrastinate. Make a decision, right? And then adjust as you go. I won't keep talking about that because that's in a later lesson, but that's something that kind of stick out to me with this lesson. What you got?
No, I think I like to fit in those stereotypes. I don't know. I used to have my dreads and all that. Yep. I used to have my locks. So imagine me walking up in your church talking about I'm a pastor and I got locks in my head and people wasn't feeling that. But who was? The people in church. Them kids that needed somebody to look up to. So that's what I was saying. Like I feel like if you really want to do what you do to the best of your ability, you got to be confident in who you are first, right? It's like you said, I don't do something just because I look up to you like crazy. But I don't do stuff just because Ray does it.
Right.
I mean, if it's the best way to do it, then I'll do it. But if I have a way that Terrence prefers, I'm gonna do the way that Terrence prefers. And that's just, that's just like because like you said, we all have our own thing that fits best. So as a leader, you have to find that like what works for me. What I see him doing, I'm gonna steal bits and pieces from that, but ultimately I'm gonna create my own mastermind of how I think I should go at every situation. So I think like you said about, Apple and everything like that. It's like you said, why would they come out with the perfect phone? That doesn't make sense. They know like what the people want. The
Right.
people like new stuff. So, it's just like in any type of leadership field, whether it be in the army, in the church, you got to make the people excited about what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? You got to get their attention. So I feel like, yeah, you got to have, elasticity when it comes to being a leader. Sometimes be able to adjust on the fly, give new ideas, break off from the norm, things like that.
And because you have to be firm in your whatever your stance is, right? Whatever your stance, whatever your belief system is, your culture is, you got to fight for your culture every day. All right, you got to be firm in your belief, but you got to be flexible in your approach, right? You don't change what you believe in. That's who you are, right? To be genuine, that's who you are. You can't change that, but you don't want to be. You can't be rigid in your approach. It got to be this way. We have to get to it this way, because at the time you'll make some people that's genius on your team not want to step up and say anything if they feel, if you always shoot the messenger, you stop getting messages. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna say one more thing to your point about the dreadlocks, right? So. And I believe I got this from Coach Walker years ago. But let's just say you're riding in a car, right? And you use this when you're talking to your young mentees, right? You're riding in a car with somebody you love, your wife, your mom, your grandmother, your sister. You're riding with someone that you love, right? It's raining real hard. Y'all need gas. You pull up to the gas station. There's guys out there. There's 5 guys standing out there with dreads, pants sagging, goes in their mouth, do-rags on. Do you get out and go in? Do you wake your mom up? Do you make her come inside with you? All right. Do you wake her up, tell her lock the door so you get back? What you do? That's a question for you. What you do?
I always tell my wife lock the door when I get out the car. My baby in the car. But personally, me, I would have went in, right?
But But what made you? What would make you have that sense of, okay, let me wake her up? How they look?
Because no. I it's not just because of how they look. I do that to anybody wherever we're at. Like if I know I'm going somewhere where I'm going to be out of sight or not able to get back in a proper manner, nah. Cause I got my baby in the car, my wife. I'm like, nah, I don't trust nobody like that. But I lock the door.
I guess my point is this.
Yeah.
People are going to judge you on your first glance.
Right.
You may have a great message to preach. You may have a great something, to coach. But you don't get a chance on the initial prejudice. And not prejudice of skin color, a prejudice of a look. Right? In the military, a soldier comes in, sharp uniform, look great. Right off the bat, he or she is giving some points. Like, okay, they look good. They might be a dirtbag. You know what I'm saying? On the flip side of that, they may be a great worker, but they show up with a dirty uniform. Right off the bat, as a leader, I'm like, man, why this dude ain't take care of his uniform? You know what I'm saying? So to understand you don't fit no stereotypes, but you also have to have a keen awareness of what's going on around you, right? When I go to an interview, right? If I got the dread, and again, listen, this is not me saying anything wrong with him, right? My AJ got him, right? There's nothing wrong with him, but you have a choice. You can choose to do what you want, right? You can't choose the consequence. You can't choose the consequence. So if they decide, they ain't gonna tell you, hey, I ain't hiring you because of your hair, right? But if they don't hire you, and they were 4 y'all, and they hired the other 3, right? And you have to figure that out. I just want to kind of put that out to you. Go ahead, you had something?
No, you're 100% right. No, you see now, I don't wear the dreads no more. I used to have a beard. I don't wear the beard because it's like you said, like you can't choose how people decide to feel about your look. So it's not even that I'm concerned with that. I just don't want no reason for me not to get the opportunity that I know I deserve because of how I look.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's just what it is for me at this point in life.
No question. No question. Great discussion there. Great discussion. Number 12, perpetual optimism is a force multiplier. The ripple effect of a leader's enthusiasm and optimism is awesome. So is the impact of cynicism and pessimism. Leaders who whine and blame engender to those same behaviors among their colleagues. I am talking about stoically accepting organizational stupidity and performance incompetence with a what? Me worry, smile? I'm talking about a gung-ho attitude that says we can change things here. We can achieve some awesome goals. We can be the best. Smear me the grim litany of the realist. Give me the unrealistic aspirations of the optimist any day. Now, I'm gonna tell you. See, this is important. Your energy, right? And I guess what's the word of this generation? Your vibe, right? Your vibe means everything to your team. Everything. If you walk into practice, like, and I know we make a point to get into practice, and I usually run before practice. So I'm good, I'm moving. So when they get there, they already know that the energy's there, right? Yeah. Your energy is a magnet on both ways, up or down, right? And so you have to really get here and say, okay, no, we're going to be better, right? We're going to be better. We've been bad, right? I use my Jaguars, Urban Meyer, right? Dude won everywhere he's been, right? He not coming in, and I remember when he first got to the organization, he talked about the really good players that was there already, that was on a 1-15 team, right? He could have well to say, hey, man, we got to blow this thing up, rebuild. I mean, he would have got pieces that he wanted, right? But he had an optimism about himself and enthusiasm about the, hey, look, we come here to win now, right? And that's what good leadership is about. Good leadership is getting in, looking at your team and say, hey, look, I know things, whatever state we're in, but this is the way we're going, and I'm excited about it, right? And I need you all to be excited about it. You can't be that leader telling them, I want you to be excited, but you always moping. You always got your head down. You know what I'm saying? What you got?
No, I think energy is contagious. You know, like what it exudes from you, people are gonna they're gonna catch on to it. And it goes back to what we were saying earlier, where if you notice somebody else has their ear, but if the leader has the team's ear, so you're gonna reach to that leader. But if they don't have the team's best interest, you gotta let them go. That's because that's a cancer. That's not the energy you want. So and one thing for me, I mean, I grew up like watching Kobe. You know what I'm saying? So I always felt like Kobe. We had bad teams, and Kobe was still shooting like he didn't want to lose. So for me, seeing that as a kid, that kind of like taught me just like, it doesn't matter how it looks, like we can change this. Like if I'm on the court or if I'm in the situation, we don't have to lose. And the one thing for me I can say I could be better at is being like that 100% of the time. Because I feel like I can do for 90% of the time I can feel like we're gonna win. But then when it starts getting ugly, I feel like sometimes that if I can be honest, my mood will change. Like, man, this ain't gonna work, or we can't do this. But for me, it's just sustaining it. Just always think like, no matter how it looks, we're gonna get through this.
And to be fair to yourself, I mean, I don't believe there's a 100% where you always here, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just want to be here less, right? And you never want to be here in front of your team. Right.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, it's I think about in coaching when guys turn the ball over, like nothing gets under my skin, probably more than that, right? But it really doesn't make a whole bunch of sense to just lose it over the turnover right then, because it really doesn't help. You know what I mean?
Right.
Now you will come out, right? We ain't gonna keep turning the ball over. You're gonna come out. However, but at the end of the day, I got to rehabilitate you right there on the moment. I got to get you to the next play. You know what I'm saying? And if you can't make the next play, then I got to bring you out, right? But at the end of the day, I have, as a leader, I have to get you, to the next play. And you mentioned Kobe and or just any player being on a bad team or you have to. I posted this the other day. You have to do more with success. You got to want success. You got to do more than just want success. That's what I'm trying to say. You got to do more than want it. Everybody wants it. I mean, listen. Everybody wants to be successful at something, but not everybody is willing to put in the work, right? Not everybody is willing to go after it, right? They dabble in it. They kind of want it, right? They kind of want to be good, right? They kind of want success, but then when a roadblock or something comes in front of them, that's when the reality of it. I really don't want this.
Right.
I kind of want to lose some weight, right? And then they wake up or they get hungry late at night, and the discipline of not getting up and eating something bad or drinking water, they have to make that decision, right? But that's when they kind of want it, just quoting the Eric Thomas whole thing. You have to want success as much as you want to breathe.
Right.
Right. And if you want something that's that bad, and you just think about that, right? You just really think about that. You breathe so effortless, so you don't really understand how important. Well, I'm sure you understand, but that's vital, right? Somebody put a bag over your head. The only thing you thinking about is getting that bag off.
Mm-hmm.
If they holding the bag over your head, I don't care what you holding in your hands. The only thing you trying to do is get that bag off your head, right?
Right.
When you want to succeed, like getting that bag off your head, that's when you'll have some success. You know what I'm saying? That's when you're like, hey man, look, I really want to do this. I really want to do this.
It's no other option. There's no other option.
Yep. And so, and I'll say this too, because we're about to close this one out. One thing that hurts a lot of young leaders, not just leaders, people in general, is this not micromanage. What's the word I'm looking for? Multitasking. See, I don't necessarily think multitasking is a pro, right? I don't believe that's a pro in all situations, because what it leads to is, and I'm not talking about multitasking, being able to talk on the phone and drive a car, or I'm talking about in your professional career, right?
Right.
When you multitask, I believe you dabble. You're not being a lead at something. You're spreading yourself across a battlefield, right? Across the workforce. You're spreading yourself thin, trying to piece together and be good at everything.
Right.
Instead of channeling your focus to being great at something. Right. And I just believe as people multitask, they really hurt themselves professionally. Right. And I know we often less than 12, but I just really believe that they hurt themselves professionally because you just can't be elite. I think, I just really think, and I just think about people I know and things eventually, stuff that they get into and business adventures they're trying to start, and then they'll start another one. And so what happens is, you got to stand firm. If you really want to be great at this, focus on being great at that. Right. And then you just drive your way until you accomplish it. You just keep pushing. You got any thoughts on that?
No, that's wisdom, man. No, that's wisdom. Like you've ran a whole bunch of little races instead of running that, that marathon of what you really wanted.
Right.
Like for me, the best thing I did was, having my family, my wife, my daughter now, is it made me focus on what I want, which is be a pastor, be a preacher. It ain't like I can't focus on hoop no more. You know what I'm saying? Like as much as I love hoop, like NBA, whatever, that ain't the goal no more. You know what I mean? Like it's like, all right, we got to do this now. So and I've noticed when I put my complete energy into it, I'm moving fast. Things are starting to happen now. Right. So like I think what you said is wisdom. What you said is wisdom.
Right. I tell you, man, I watched you, man, in 7 years develop, right? And that's important because, as we always say in coaching, at some point, the air going to come out the ball. All right. At some point, the ball going to stop bouncing. And that's where you have to be ready for it to stop bouncing. And you've done a great job of that. But that's going to end this episode. All right. It's going to end this episode, part 2, lessons 7 through 12. We'll pick up next week with episode 8, which will be, 12, 13 through 18, being that math, right? 13 through 18. I want to thank everybody for joining us, having this conversation. Again, if y'all want to have any specific topics that you would like to talk about, just leave a comment, send me a message, and we'll come on here and we'll have some leadership talk. Thanks again, Terrence, for joining us. Looking forward to the next discussion for 13 to 18. And y'all have a great day. Y'all be great today.
Solid.